Hello and welcome. My name is Christine Bergstrom. This is the North Star broadcast. On today's show, we'll be speaking with Carlos Koltes, who had an incredible near-death experience. He would then experience a series of synchronistic events and even a vision of what may come in the future. He has an amazing story, and I encourage you to proceed with this show and really any future shows with an open heart and an open mind. Know that some of what is shared may challenge or shake your belief systems. Yet if you can proceed with that open mind and open heart, you just might be open to receive a gift, a message, a new way of being or thinking in the world that you weren't quite expecting. So just sit back and enjoy, and I thank you for being here. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today's guest is Carlos Koltes, and today he will be sharing an incredible near-death experience and some subsequent transcendental experiences. So Carlos, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today. And I'm pretty much just going to turn it over to you, and you can pick up at wherever you feel is relevant.
Thank you, Christine. Really honored to be here. It's not usual for me to get to tell my story with my own words, and particularly, potentially reaching a lot of people in your audience. I know you do a wonderful work, and so hopefully so how to say this, so hopefully our time together will be fruitful. I'm sure it will. So where do I start? I think it's important to go all the way back to when I was a small child, and the reason is because it sort of shows a continuity that our life has. It's not we do not experience events that are how to say it, dislocated from one another. Everything is interlocked in our lives. So for me personally, the main event that perhaps marked or actually put me on my spiritual path is it started actually before I was born, because my dad died 3 weeks before my birth. So, when growing up as a small kid, I would ask my mom, where is my dad, and things like that. What happened to him, or where is he? And I would be told that he was, that he was a good man, who was very loving, good family man, all that stuff, but basically he had died, and he was in heaven with God. And I realized this years later. I had this epiphany where I realized that as a child I didn't take no for an answer. It's like, oh, okay, in heaven with God, and where is that? And we gotta find that place. We are blessed with this mind that is not yet so limited as to what is that we can do and we cannot do. So as a child, to me, it was like, well, if my dad is with God in heaven, let's go there, let's find heaven. And so I realized that in the very back of my mind, in my subconscious mind, everything I've done in my life after hearing these things, it was in order to hopefully find them. It's just incredible seeing that every single thought and hope and choice that I made all throughout my life, in the back of my head, it was like, maybe I'm gonna find them here. it was just unbelievable. So that put me on my spiritual path, right? Ever since I was a child, I wanted to know where was God and where was heaven. And so when I was 4 or 5 years old, I remember watching the movie King of Kings in a big black and white TV my grandparents had. And I was sitting by myself on my parents' bed watching the movie, and there is this scene that I felt so moved. At, when Jesus speaks at the Mount of Olives, there was so much love coming off the screen. I was just in awe of so much beauty and so much love. And I remember thinking for myself, when I grow up, I want to be like him. I didn't want to be, the president or a firefighter or an astronaut or a teacher. I wanted to be like him. In truth, I never really had a career in mind. There were many things I could have done. So there was no goal for me to reach when I was an adult. I guess I wanted to be as loving and as pure as I could. That was the goal for me. And so the answer came many years later. The answer to that little prayer, and I remember, Christine, when I'm sitting with you right now, and I'm watching this the movie on TV, and the moment I finished thinking, when I grow up, I want to be like him. I remember even now I can feel. To my mind, it was like sparkly bubbles up and down my spine and all over the body, and it felt so very good. Now I understand that was the answer. Now I understand that was spirit, illuminating that wish in my heart, so it would become true one day, and as it did. So many years later, I was always quite devoted. There was a time in my life, let's say in my teenager years until my early 20s, where I was not religion or God, things like that were not in my mind. But then I started to become really, how to say this, dissatisfied, really dissatisfied with my life. And so I look for a venue for this heart of devotion that I had. There was so much devotion within me. I couldn't find a place to canalize that. So I tried the Catholic Church, didn't work. I spoke to priests in what's called, not the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church as well, for practices, for prayers. I wanted, the real meat of things. I didn't want to just go to church, on Sundays and then wait until next Sunday. What happened in between those 7 days? How do I live? So that was unsatisfactory as well. So until I found Buddhism. When I found Buddhism and I learned about bodhicitta or compassion as the vehicle towards which we can achieve liberation, enlightenment, it really spoke to me. It really felt like I was home. So I did practice that for quite some time, and I had many different mystical experiences as well, like satoris, and I could everything that I could read that was about mysticism and spirit and the light. I could just read it, and I could understand it fairly well and fairly quickly. Whether it was Jewish books like the Zohar or the Kabbalah or Don Juan, the Buddhist scriptures. I would put my hands everywhere, and I would actually have certain experiences coming out of all these. And again, having all this, I had, I started a family. I had moved. I grew up in Argentina. I moved to Canada after when I was 28 years old, and I had a career as a massage therapist, practicing Senshatsu, Reiki. I was quite successful in my own small way, but whatever it is that I did, it was I could get really good results. And still, I could find. I think that for A Course in Miracles people, this is very, very common, Christine. There is a point in our lives when we get so dissatisfied that we just pray, we ask for a better way to live our life, right? Because we are tired. And I that's the point where I reach in my life, where I had the things that I wanted to have in my life. And yet, I was entirely unhappy, and was unhappy with myself, mainly because none of the things that I have done, my thinking wasn't working for me anymore. Everything that I tried to do in my life, whether it was with my marriage or family life, family of origin, some friendships and so on, nothing really worked. There was pain, or at least a tinge of pain everywhere. It's like I could not escape it. Everything I did, it would lead to pain in one way or the other. And if I could find or offer some comfort, it was always short-lived, or at least nothing permanent. And so I reached a point where I asked for a better way, and that's when everything in my life started to just fall apart. It literally started to fall apart. Marriage, relationships. I was studying Reiki with my teacher. That relationship blew out of the water. Career-wise, I was going downhill. I was doing some work with hospice at the time. In Toronto as a volunteer, and I was very dissatisfied with that as well, because of all the suffering that I was seeing in front of me. It's like I could be of assistance, but I could not bring peace to those situations. So I could, yeah. So I was in a tremendous deal of internal pain, the struggle, and I literally surrendered everything. It was like if all my thoughts had led me to this point, I didn't want to think anymore. And it was like, at this point, I don't know if there is a God, there is no God. I personally don't know. Everything I've lived all my life based on what other people think, based on other people's experiences and conclusions and so on, but nothing that was really mine, nothing that came out of my own experience. So I was living what I call now by hearsay, right? But what other people say and believe. I couldn't stand that anymore. So I just literally abandoned all thought. All thought. It just hurt to think, okay, I can plan for myself. I couldn't plan for myself, and I was keenly aware of that. So it was an excruciating mental pain that I was feeling. there was something else. There are so many things, so many details. Oh yeah, with regards to death. At the age 36, that was the first time I really uh, allowed myself to put myself in my father's shoes and what it would be like for him to go through what he went through. You know, my entire life I thought always about me. You know, the lot that I got from my life. But what about him? So once I started to focus myself, once I shifted focus from myself onto the suffering of others, that's when really things started to change for me. That was the first time I grieved my dad at the age 36, and it was the most beautiful day in my life. One of the most beautiful days in my life. He just showed up. He showed up as a butterfly. And I was living out in Toronto. I had to run some errands, and I would ride my bike downtown, and that little butterfly was everywhere I go. I would come inside the building, do my errands, wherever it was, come outside, get on my bike, look up, and there it was again. Ride all the way from downtown to my house, and the butterfly was all over. You know, it was still there. Like 3 hours later, it was still following me everywhere. I lived on where I lived. We had a balcony on this third floor. I remember going up to the balcony, and there was this butterfly, you know, right in front of me, right like 3 feet from my face, and he would barely, you know, beat the wing. Whoops, sorry. Sorry about that.
All good.
The phone went fine. So, and the most impressive, one of the most impressive parts of this is that I'm thanking this butterfly, and it starts to drift away, and there was a cloud, a completely clouded sky, and it just drifted away into the sky, and it just like dissolved on the sky. It was so unbelievable, and that was the first time that I got to cry, you know, let it out. I let so much out, and so that all those things were preparing me. You know, the people that I was that were clients with the hospice, they were presenting similar messages. So there was a point where I had to move from where I was living with my wife, and I ended up couch surfing, and a friend who hosted me for about 3-4 weeks. She had an extensive library, and we both love books. And she said, you know, you can help yourself with any of these. Just when you're finished, just put it back. That's, you know, that's all I'm gonna ask of you. And so I picked up 3 books, and by this time I didn't know, but I was already living by guidance. In the way I learned how to live later on, by following the tenets of A Course in Miracles, which is always by, it's like, if you're told to go to a certain place, you go to a certain place, but you don't go looking for something. If you want or need something, it's gonna come to you. And I started to live like that, and that's how things started to occur for me. So whenever I would be, if I were told, here are books, help yourself, that's an invitation. And so I would do that, but I would not, out of my own volition, think, oh, I want to read those books, because I had surrendered all that thought, right? So I got 3 books. The one that inspired me the most is called the Yeshua Letters, and it's a book written by John Mark Comer, who is literally it's the story of his own awakening and his encounters with Jesus. In this book, I saw so many similarities between John Mark and myself that added the fact that in the foreword it says that that book is being written by Jean Marc, but is written for you, like for me. So, and he says you're gonna take a whole lot more out of this book if you understand that these words are actually intended for you. That's the other invitation, right? And so I go like, okay. So I start reading, and because I would just abandoning all thought. What happens is that now I understand it. We generate the world without thinking. So once I stop thinking, the world slowly subsides. Yeah. So it kind of it's kind of like the world steps back, and now I know I was under either a cocoon or a vortex. But at the time I didn't know it because I had abandoned all concepts, so I was not conceptualizing any of my experience. Now I am in order to understand it. But at the time it was whatever it is, and whatever it is was being more than perfect. So I started having these epiphanies and mystical experiences during the day. And then I come in the evening, I had, supper with my friend, go read the book. And then as I read the book, I find the exact same experiences that I had earlier in the day in the book. So it's like, okay, this is the real stuff. In my mind, it's like, okay, I'm not making this up. If I read it first and then I have the experience, that can be manufactured, right? The ego can take the ego mind can take credit for it and say, oh, look, Carlos, what you accomplished, right? So in this way, we short-circuited that, so it couldn't happen. And so I knew that these experiences, I knew they were real for me, but I had confirmation in reading the book. And so I would go one chapter a day. And this thing kept on happening. Because I had abandoned all thought, I was very meek, you could say. Again, I was just, there were times during the day, like 4, 5, 6 times a day, where it was like a mantle of silence that would come over me, and I would just go inside, and I don't know how long I would stay in that state of peace, total complete peace. And I started to be awakened at 3 o'clock in the morning on the dot, like my sleep, my rest was just unbelievable. Because my mind was empty, when it was time for resting, I would go to bed, close my eyes, and I would go into this, like a 0 point in my heart. And there is no world, there is no universe there. I could rest and be aware and awake during my rest. But I knew I was resting. It's unbelievable. And then when it's time to wake up, then that is when the thoughts start to arise in the mind, and that's where the world appears. And I could have dreams. For example, there were jokes, so I would wake up laughing. And these jokes that I would dream were all were funny stuff. It was funny stuff, but it was also telling me about my own holiness, about how precious I am to God. I think those two things are essential. You know, feeling how dear I am to God, one thing, and reminding me of my holiness and my innocence. That those were the other point. Always in every dream, and in every dream I would wake up laughing. And you know, years later I go back to the Course in Miracles, and you know, or if we go to the Course in Miracles now, when we go to the section where it says, you know, how will the world end? The world will end in laughter, because it's a pain of pain, it's a pain, it's a place of tears. So it will end with the opposite as it started. You know, the world arose out of the idea of death, of being different and separate from what I am. So the human journey is the one of going away from the light and then remembering the light. It's part of the creative process. We think of it as sin or as mistakes, and it's not a sin, it's not a mistake. Our lives here are not, yes, they are a dream, but they do have a purpose, and the purpose is the purpose of creation. But I would discover this later on, back to 1998 or 99. One of the times when I would wake up at 3 in the morning, and I would wake up at 3 in the morning and just sit on the floor, in Sassen position, on a meditation position, and just rest there. There was nothing happening except these changes and feeling inside these mystical processes that, and one of them, it was very, very clear to me. I started to play with my breathing, and so there were times where my breathing would slow down, become very, very subtle, and then literally stop, and then return. You know, very, very subtle and literally stop. Now I understand that these are yogic practices. They happen naturally. And they happen naturally when I get out of my way. It's just the way we are designed. Once I get out of my neurotic thoughts, my neurotic thinking, my natural mind, literally and on its own just sinks back into the heart, and that's when we get the heart and mind connection. So I was at that heart and mind connection space, totally completely empty. And one night was a little bit different. I think this was probably the last night that this happened, because I started to feel like I'm sitting on the floor, everything dark, and I feel this very tender tickle in my heart. You know, it starts to grow and grow and grow, and it starts to grow into this warmth, this sense of compassion. It was like I was enveloped in this. It's like a mantle. It's like an egg. It's like it's complete comfort and understanding. And it had a very, very strong feminine quality to it. And I just knew I could identify that as Mother Mary. And again, I want to be. I'm not religious. I'm not a religious person. I knew I had identified that energy as the cosmic feminine or the divine feminine, but this energy wanted me to know that it was Mother Mary. It was not just any feminine or a general feminine. It was very, very, it had an identity of sorts. So to my mind, with those feelings, I just didn't care about whether, it had an identity or a name to it or not. I just didn't. But it was this love wanted me to put a name to it, and that's the name of Mary. And and so I have this. At this point, I'm just enveloped in this sense of warmth and total complete comfort. And it's at that point that I started to see very rapidly, very quickly, all the events in my life up until that point. But and this is part of the teaching, because we all have the exact near-death experience, or any experience, the exact experience we need. And so this was the exact experience I needed. And in my life, I'm seeing myself not as Carlos growing up, in age, as the body was going up, but I was always the child. I was always this energy wanted me to see me how spirit would see me, always as a child of God, not understanding, confused, angry, all of that, but always as a child. So there was this motherly love and complete acceptance, because it was seen beyond the appearances into my heart. And so every regret that I had, I cried so many tears. They were just, I don't know how to express this flowing. It's not the word, because they were flowing, but they were just falling out of my eyes. It was, and it was not crying. It was, those are tears of purification. So those are tears of recognition of how loved we really are, how precious we really are. And of course we forget that, but I got to remember it. So this is when things get a little confused for me, because in terms of the linearity of the experience, because I know that certain things did happen. I can't exactly remember which happened when. Because after feeling this, I was in enjoying such a sense of deep peace and comfort and gratitude and love, that I started to see again my breath slowing down and then stopping. And as it stops, I can feel that the heart also stops. I mean, we stop the brain activity, and then the nervous system starts to quiet down, and everything stops. That was my experience at that moment. That because there was no mental activity, then the mind could sink into the heart, and in there all the whole transformation would occur. So I am feeling how my breath slows down, comes to a stop. My heart is the same thing. The heartbeat becomes spaced out. I'm very weak, and then at one point it just stops. And so I could feel that there was no, because you can also hear it, the blood rushing through the body. None of that. There was no activity on any of the internal organs that I could feel at all. And I think that's when I popped out of the body. And I could see it. And to me, you've seen those garden Buddhas that people put on their lawns. Well, the body that was sitting, it was exactly like that. It was like a piece of rock sitting on the floor, not dead, not alive. It was not me. I had no thoughts, no emotional connection to the body. And so it is at this point. Okay, and I'm not gonna try and be linear because I'm gonna get lost. So I'm just gonna say it the way it comes out. So at that point, everything stops. I'm seeing myself from above, and I am. I'm sort of like leaving the room, and suddenly all I see is just the planet, gyrating, and I see bodies coming out of it, and right away I understood that the world doesn't go around. It's not love that makes the world go around, but belief. It's not a very romantic idea. We don't like to hear about that because we want to think that love is, but this in our case is belief that creates the world that we think we live in. And so as I'm leaving the planet, and I'm now way out in the cosmos, and I see the planet gyrating, I realize that the planet I'm living, the timeline I'm living, is the one for 2012, and that because of our belief, and there is something to it about the turn of the ages, but what makes it happen is our belief. So I knew at the time that this was a timeline of ascension, because the people that I could see coming out of the planet, those were people that were ascending individually. And so I also understood that every time I heal, you heal, and every time you heal, I heal, because our minds are joined. And I also knew that this was a timeline of opportunity to liberate the mind from the illusions of death, because out of death, every belief we have comes from death, every single one of them. Death is separation, is illness, is increase, is decrease, is time. Everything we see in this realm comes from that idea of death. So I know this is. So I realize what this timeline and living is all about. If I remember correctly, that's where I entered this space. There is not a void, because I could see stars like in the background, like very, very faintly, but I can see stars in the background. Everything is very dark, and I can start. So I enter this space, and I start feeling the like a vibration and a hum that have become very familiar to me at the time, because that's how Jesus appears to me. He never appears as a body, because he doesn't want to teach me I'm a body, right? So never appears as a body, always as light, because he wants to remind me that I'm light, I'm not a body. So it starts as a vibration on a physical level. I can feel it on the back of my head, at the base of the skull, between my ears. That's that's where the vibration starts, and I just absolutely right away I know who it is. It's totally unmistakable. Um, and so from there it starts to grow. So in this case, I'm totally, of course, I'm disembodied, and at there was okay, there was a see how it comes. There was a point where I remember feeling so much love that it was just overwhelming, and I remember thinking, "Wow, is all this love, for me?" And the moment I thought that, the totality of love, it just literally swallowed me up, and I just disappeared into this love. I think this happened right after um, my encounter with Mother Mary. I feel this love, and then the breath starts to slow down and so on. That's when after that I leave the body. I'm in the void, and that's when Jesus appears again as a vibration, and it asked me, because I had thoughts of suicide, but I had decided against it. But yet, at this point where Jesus appeared, he asked me that one question: do you really want to die? And out of my heart, I didn't even think. Out of my heart, I just said or thought, I just want to go home. It's like, I'm tired, dude. I don't want to die. That's not. I don't believe in that stuff. I just want to go home. If there is such a thing, that's what I want. And that's when suddenly I see this. I see the light of Jesus in the background. I see this huge arc, like like the arc of l'Arc de Triomphe in France. It was huge, and it was very, very ornamented. It was like golden in color, and it had crystals and pearls and precious stones. It was very, very, again, very elaborate and very impressive. And so Jesus is on the other side, and he's inviting me to come to the other side of the ark. But I know that the ark is the ark of death. So, it's like, well, yeah, you're Jesus. I'm not. So, if I go through that ark, I'm finished. That's when Jesus again, come with me. And it's like the light intensified a little bit, and then I go like, okay, hold on a minute, if you are on the other side and you're communicating with me, that means that, and I could see the light coming through the portal. So if you're on the other side and you're here and you're coming through the portal and you're okay, that means, and the moment I thought that means, I just shoot it underneath this portal. And the moment I'm passing underneath the portal, I realize it's a thought. That death portal is just a thought. It has no consequence whatsoever. It's like any other thought. So it's in itself is inert. I cannot be touched by thoughts. And that's when I realized that I'm actually an immortal soul. And the moment I realized that, Christina, just exploded in this most magnificent, ecstatic. There are absolutely no words to explain how it's like an explosion of cosmic lights, and is remembering that you are again who you are, infinite, immortal, all powerful, innocent, connected to absolutely all there is, just pure light. And beauty is just it's an undescribable feeling. And so I keep ascending. I'm saying ascending, but I keep moving. As I keep moving, I encounter like a barrier. It literally it felt like that. Like one of those, when you're on the road, you're about to cross a railway crossing, the barrier that comes down. Something like that came down. But and immediately I knew that I either was going to take a new body or return to this one. And right away, and this is one of the beautiful things I remember now about spirit, how consistent it is. Because right away it was like, okay, I don't want to, I do want to come back to the same timeline, because this is the Ascension timeline. So I can make very good use of it. I had seen how every unwholesome thought that I have in my mind, every unloving thought that I have, leaves some sort of it's like the wake on a ship as it goes through the ocean, and so it let's say that the fabric of reality is just one level line. When I think an unloving thought, I create gravity, and another unloving thought, and more gravity, and that's what I saw, the deeps and the valleys of the mind, right? So the mind is not modified by these thoughts at all. It doesn't change at all, but it's not natural, right? So as souls, what we want to do is, out of compassion, keep everything exactly the way it is, which is perfect. And so that's the work that I saw that I had to do, which is to bring all those thoughts, back into balance, through forgiveness. So the first thing I have is I want to go back to the same body. The second reason for that is because by taking a new body, a new dream body, I would have to start all over again, and the psychological trauma that we go through in childhood is not something I wanted to repeat. It's like you have this infinite mind, and you start to bring it, limits onto it, and you're saying no. It's so unnatural that I wanted to avoid that, and so I said that was the other reason. So one is Ascension, and the other one is I can use the same body. I don't need to recreate this. And so once I decided that, I went straight into what I would describe as a console in front of me, Star Trek type of thing. And there I had the images I have, everything is bright light, and this is bright white light and bright soft blue light, like the color of your microphone, but lighter than that. That's the only contrast I could see that I can remember now. But in there, I had what I call the skeleton for my life. The basic blueprint was there. My age, things like that, where I was born, the experiences I had, and so on. All of that was useful. So all I did, because this is the time of ascension, and each time I heal, you heal as well. I wanted to bring in as much as possible to heal now, so we could all ascend into what we call now a new earth. And so I added as many challenges, as many lessons as I could. I just loaded the thing. And this is a message for whoever is having troubles out there. You have done this. If you're wondering, whoa, here we go again. Sorry. If you, things go flying here. If you're wondering why, can I keep going? Okay. If you ever wonder why things are getting so difficult for you, if you wonder why, your health is not getting any better, if you feel that there are so many losses in your family and so on, is because probably you try to do the same thing I try to do, or I'm doing now, which is to empty all the karma out, because it's illusory, and we are coming to see now more and more that the world is not as solid or as stable as it seemed to be. We have the power of that's the power of thought. We have the power of creating worlds, of creating universes, and this is what we are coming here to remember. So after I'm done with this process of preparing the blueprint, and to me is I don't remember planning particular events. What I think that happens is that we bring in all the elements that we want to work with into this blueprint, and then it's like one of those shake and bakes you get at the grocery store. You put all the ingredients are in there, so you put all the ingredients that you want in there, and then you shake it up a little bit, you put it in the oven, comes out as you like. That's the best way I have to put it. So perhaps that's one of the reasons why we don't remember what our plan is. But indeed, our soul or our oversoul does remember those things, and that is the voice that is guiding us. Now, when we ask for guidance, it's our own voice of the oversoul, because the oversoul knows the plan exactly, and so it can lead us in our life, so we can have a much better experience, one that is actually a happy experience and not one of struggle. We are also shifting the paradigm. So in the paradigm before, we had to do, we would earn the bread with the sweat of our forehead. Not anymore, darling. Now it's a different paradigm. Now it's the feminine. Now we sit back and open to receive. So everything that goes into, oh, I'm gonna make this happen, no, it's not gonna happen. Or it's gonna be more difficult. We're gonna find resistance if we try to do things, or if I try to do things the old way, the masculine way, so to speak. So this is a shift into the feminine, and so I must shift into the feminine as well, and be open to receive from spirit 24/7. So that's the whole idea. And so once I was done with the blueprint, there was a being And with this, I want to be careful, because when I say a being, I don't mean a being that is separate from me. It's like you have only light, and then lights that are brighter than the rest of the lights, and that's a being. And all beings are, of course, eternal, and because all being is eternal, they all kind of superimpose on each other. In here in in physical life, or in the physical, if you have this occupying this space, you can only have this occupying the space. In non-physical life, you know, everything can occupy the same space, and that's actually what happens, right? So when I want to talk to you, all I have to do is have a thought that I want to communicate with you, and because it's intended to you, you are going to have the same thought at the same time. Everybody else, all lights are going to receive the same thoughts, but they will know that, oh, this is not for me, so it will not register. Yeah, not in a conscious manner. You will still register, you will still receive all communications from all of creation, but only that which is intended for you will come as a thought in your mind. So this being, who is identical as me, is one with me, but distinct in the sense of seem to know everything about how to create the perfect plan for your life and be successful. I mean, you can, sorry, scratch that. As a soul, I am perfect. And so this is impossible for me to not be successful, to create a life that is faulty, or a plan that is incomplete. It's absolutely impossible. It's just a matter of interpretation. So this being, in seeing how much I have loaded the blueprint, it communicated with me. It said clearly, this is a heavy load, and I understood exactly what it was saying. And I thought back, thank you. I remember it's not true. And with that, I just went into, in my mind, I went into a separate area, or I went into an area where everything was muffled. I was like in a cocoon, and everything was muffled. The lights weren't as bright. I was still me, but I was like in suspense. I was holding. It's like a holding area, and out of that, I can feel suddenly a pull, and what's pulling me down is the fear of being abandoned, or being totally alone, rather, entirely destitute, like being alone and having nothing. As I'm going down this tunnel, it's actually a vortex that is gyrating in both directions, and I see pictures, and these pictures are very bright and they're very loud. These are all the scenes in my life that I was coming into. I started to see them all flashing and going around real quick. And the sound, was, I don't know if you've ever been in the Niagara Falls or any other falls like that. It's really, really, really loud, and that's exactly what I was feeling. And it is these two terrors that were pulling my energy down, and that resulted in me just landing back on the body. It was like a thump. You could actually hear it. I was in shock because somehow I forgot what I intended to do. It caught me totally by surprise. But at the same time, I right away I realized I'm back here and there is zero I can do about it. So right away I accepted the situation, and I continue resting as if nothing had happened. No, now that I think back, it's like, wow, how did I do that? It was just like, okay, I'm back. And then, 10, 15, 20 minutes, I don't know how much longer after that, I was sitting there meditating, not even meditating, just sitting there. And then it was time to go back to bed, and we just went to bed. And the next day I don't even remember what happened the next day. But this thing was a memory that I never doubted. Never, never, ever doubted. There were doubts in my mind at some point as to whether I was going crazy, because the contrast of being Carlos one day, and then the next day you are literally the Holy Son of God, and there is no doubt in your mind that this is what you are. And then you're back in the world, and the world keeps being the world, and you are not the same one anymore, and you don't see anybody the same anymore, and you don't speak the same language anymore. So at one point I started to doubt myself because I thought I was going crazy. But I had a wonderful, wonderful confirmation, and that's one of the things that would happen for me afterwards, Christine. Just 3 weeks. Now I know that the 3 weeks, the near-death experience, and literally the time before that, it was designed for my mind to learn how to forgive, to learn A Course in Miracles. The type and amount of mystical experiences I had after the main event, it was non-stop. Again, from the moment I got to rest at night, and I would wake up with with dreams of jokes and laughter and happiness. If I needed, I had um, uh, this work that I was doing. At the time, I had an office in downtown Toronto, and I had 1 or 2 days only that I would see clients. I think I had 4 clients left. They were all teachers. And this one time, I remember resting, and again, I'm resting. I'm not in time, so I'm resting, and suddenly I open my eyes and I see the clock. The time it was, I think it was 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. That's the time I was supposed to be in the office. So it's like, I'm late, and I'm trying to not get too worked up, because Spirit constantly is telling me, relax, it's okay, relax, it's okay, relax, it's okay. No, with words, I don't hear words. It's a sense that I have in myself that everything is all right. I don't need to hear that, although sometimes I do. And so, I leave the house as soon as I can, and I have an hour or a little longer than an hour trip from the house where I was staying to downtown Toronto. And I continuously pray for my client to be late for a miracle, because I was an hour late, and I could see on every subway station the time, checking, praying. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the next one I see will show me a different time, And the reason, and this is something really, really beautiful, because I didn't care about me being late. I didn't want to create any distress in anybody, uh, people just wondering, oh, maybe he'll show up. That's a little bit of distress in the mind. And I couldn't stand the thought of me being the late and causing distress to somebody. That's why I was praying so hard. It was for the other person. It was not for me to be in time. And so I get off the subway station on Bloor in Toronto, and I had 2 blocks to walk towards the Jewish Community Center, where the on Bloor Spadina, where the office was. And I walked there. I walk up to the what do you call it? Oh my! To the receptionist. There we go. and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm 1 hour late, and one of my clients already been here." And she goes, "Oh, well, Carlos is only, I don't remember exactly what time, but I remember she saying, well, Carlos, don't worry, you're on time. Actually, you're an hour earlier." So there is a 2-hour time period that I cannot account for. From the moment I left the subway station to the moment I got to, it's just 2 blocks. I walk backwards in time. I don't understand that, because I was supposed to be late an hour, but no, I was early an hour. I thought, maybe it was because summertime, maybe it was a change in time, but it's only an hour that changes time, not 2. So I could not explain it. So this time warp thing, again, I would just think of something. I had this little gig I got later on, working as a cleaner or bar back at a bar in Toronto, and they asked me to wear a shirt that was black. I didn't have one, so I wore one that was a deep blue, and the owner saw it and called me out aside and said, you can keep that shirt today, but tomorrow, if you're gonna work, you're gonna need a black one. And he was very forceful, and I go, okay, now I need a black shirt, and so I finished work. I'm walking down on Spadina Street, sorry, no, on Bloor Street, and I see a T-shirt. It was like 3:30 in the morning, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I see a T-shirt by the curb. I pick it up, and it's brand new. It's clean. It's still folded. They had the creases and everything. So I go like, "Thank you. This is my shirt, and it's black." Now I put on the shirt, and it's black, but it does have a white logo on it. It says 416. Area 416, and I go, okay, well, this is what it was given. This is what I'm wearing tonight. And so I do that. I go to work. The owner sees me. He calls me again. And he goes, I like your shirt. And I go, oh, thank you. And he goes, where did you get it? And I go, it was given to me. I go, oh, okay. Because he goes, that's the shirt for our other pub. So now your friend, I was replacing a friend, and he said, now when Claudio comes back, if you want to take a job on the other pub, I have a job for you. So everything was happening like that. Absolutely everything was happening like that. One thing led to the other, and everything was given. And at one point, again, it's the feminine action. At one point, and this was key, because this is what the Course in Miracles entered my life, because I'm resting in a bed at a friend's house, and he had on the wall one of these paintings of Jesus with the 3 lights coming off his wound on the right side, and as I'm resting, I can feel the humming again. I can start hearing the humming, and there's this light coming out of the picture, of course, Jesus. and that was the occasion when he asked me 3 questions, and there was a process. It's so interesting because I learned that in the Jewish tradition, when they ask a question, they ask the question 3 times. 3 times. And so this was the same question 3 times, you know. The first thing I felt, it was on my left foot, on the sole of my left foot, a piercing pain, like yeah, that's the way I literally, it's like having a hot nail through the going through the feet, and it was really painful. And I was thinking, well, you know, if you took the nails, you know, I can take this one. So I enter into a state of acceptance, and as I think this, a rush of energy starts to run through the left side of my body, run down my leg. That's where I could feel it the most, and like flashing out stuff. And as I feel this, I hear the question. And the first question is, would you look for God and only God? And I have an image that accompanies this word, and the image is to turn away from the skyline that I see representing the world and looking at the stars representing God. And so that's a turn away from the thinking of the word and look for God's word only. So I said yes to that question, and right away the pain stopped, or the rush stopped, and then I was given a second question, and then a third one. So the second question was, the first question was if I would look for God and only God. The second question was, would you bring everybody to heaven with you? And with that, I saw an image of me regarding everybody as innocent, seeing the innocence of a child in absolutely every person without a past. And I said yes to that. The pain came back again after that, and the rush of energy, acceptance and the rush of energy with the question. And the third question was, would you accept your only identity as the Christ? To my mind, Christ is first light. So it's the first creation. It's not a person. It has nothing to do with a cross. It's about creation. So will I accept myself as Christ? Is accept myself as a child of God, as the first light. To that I said yes again. And when I said that, I could see the number 365. I had my eyes closed, but I could still see the number 365, and so I assumed that I didn't learn how to ask follow-up questions then. Now I do. But so I assumed that I had a year to do these 3 things. Because at the same time, I started to download again all the script for my for my life. So all the egoic thoughts it started to come back again. All the fears, doubts, cravings, all of that started to come out again. And at first I tried not to get into that, but then I realized that this is what I had chosen. So I started to live out the ego as an ego, you know. But and the funny thing is that I could observe myself still today. I can observe myself acting as an ego, but knowing that this is just the way the script is being planned. So I let it happen, and of course, as all these things are being downloaded again, all these impurities, so to speak, impure thought. So there was no way that I could be so forgiving with myself and with the world in one ear. So I thought that I had literally failed and felt like brutally uh, in 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 sticking out in, in, in sticking up to these promises. So I started to feel really bad about myself. Um, Literally, I thought, I was given this huge opportunity. It's what I wanted my whole life, and now that I have it, I keep falling back on with these thoughts and these cravings and anger and um, uh, cravings for alcohol started to come up again and all that. So I was feeling really down because I thought that I had literally fell, and that was it for me. But then on my birthday, so tomorrow is gonna be 23 years. My mom had come from Argentina to visit me in Toronto, and for my birthday, she presented me with this with a golden chain with a cross. And the cross, instead of a body, nailed to it, it had a star. It had this beautiful star right in the center. So beautiful gift from my mom. I got to the next gift from my girlfriend at the time, and she apologizes. She knows I love books, and she apologizes because she said, I don't know this book at all, but it came out of a shelf at three different bookstores. So I had to get it for you. If you don't like it, we exchange it. But I hope you do. And so I opened the gift and I look at the book, and the first thing I see is the same star that was on my mom's present on that cross. The same star was on the cover of this book, and it's called A Course in Miracles. I see it has a text, manual for students, a workbook. I open the book and I see it has 365 lessons, and that's when it landed, right? Okay, so this is what Jesus meant. Now I have to, in order to do what I came here to do, this is how I do it. This is how he teaches forgiveness. This is my way out of hell. So immediately I knew what to do. Again, everything is being planned so perfectly. So I knew that there was a group just a block away from where my office was in Toronto. There was a group that offered Wednesday night healing circles based on A Course in Miracles. So, and I remember seeing an ad of theirs on a magazine, a Vitality magazine. So I went and picked one up, a magazine. I opened it. I opened it exactly on their um, um, on the page where their little advertisement was. So there it was. I had the number. I called them right away. Next, I think like 3-4 days later, I was there on a Wednesday night. I studied. They used to offer also workshops, classes on transpersonal psychology. They had a 3-year course I took with them. It was all aligned with A Course in Miracles. It's all about learning how to forgive. It's that to me, to my life, that's all there is. There is another thing of and this was a little unsettling. I have several streams, and by that I mean I have many lifetimes as a Christian mystic. I had many, many lifetimes as a Buddhist monk. I had many, many lifetimes living as a Native American. And all of that is coming together now. Because all the prophecies are coming together now. And all the prophecies of the second coming are being fulfilled right now. And the second coming is not the coming of a guy on a cloud. It's not going to happen like that. It's going to happen within our heart. And everything, absolutely everything I know now is designed. So within the next 20, 23 years, 20, 23, 2030, I was going to say, but let's take 23. The next 23 years, ourselves and the world we live in, or we think we live in, is going to be very, very different. And that's one of the visions that I was given. And this a little bit of a point of contention with some people in the Course in Miracles community, but this is what I was shown. I was shown with regards to the future, I was shown two things. One is that the healing work we do now, the work of forgiveness that we do now, is planting the seeds, and is planting the seeds for the arrival of Buddha Maitreya. And Buddha Maitreya is like, what I saw was eons, like let's say 2,000, 3,000 years from now. That's when spiritual teachings will be almost forgotten. And out of this, what I could see is a place that was totally dry, desolate, and dark, very dark. There was almost no spiritual thoughts. But that's the time when Maitreya, the next Buddha, will arrive. And if it wasn't because of the seeds of light that we are planting now, there would be no possibility at all for Maitreya to arise in 2,000-3,000 years. So the work we are doing now, it doesn't only benefit us. What I've seen is that we are planting the seeds for Maitreya to arrive. So the next avatar to arrive. That's one of the visions I had. And the other vision, it was more proximate, and it had to do with the days we are living in today. What I could see is light coming from the core of the earth and just pushing things out. What happens is a different density needs to the physicality needs to rearrange itself in order to accommodate a different density, right? A lighter density cannot have the structures that we have today, neither the mental structures nor the physical structure, right? So all that is gonna move around, is gonna change. I saw buildings crumbling, I saw volcanoes, I saw the plates, the tectonic plates moving, people running around in the streets. And this is the real teaching, at least for me, because I could see two kinds of people. It's like the same earth slowly started to become two. And I think that's part of the what's the word I'm looking for? Of the great deal of polarization that we are undergoing now. There is a point where the dark and the light will not be there. There's not gonna be room for any gray within us. It's either gonna be black or white. Who are you? And based on that decision, what I saw, it was two types of people. One that will stay on 3D, learning the lessons the way we are learning them now, and then another group, and this is the part done. It was another group of people that were going with a lighter earth. It was clearer, it was brighter, it was lighter, and it was happy. So one is fear, one is love. There's two thought systems, and we need to choose now which one it represents us, which one we want to live in. Now, with this movement onto 5D, based on my experience, number one, the jumps will be the spiritual jumps will be incremental, because as the sun continues to awaken in this world of symbols, the plasma emitted is literally spiritual energy. That's exactly what it represents. And so the sun is already waking up. The earth is already waking up. They're waking up together, and we are waking up together with those two. And so our work, our attention, the emphasis is on choosing love and making room for silence, so spirit can guide us through this process. One last thing, when I was right after the near-death experience, that space of holiness I was living in, that's what in A Course in Miracles Jesus called the real world. So we live in the ego world of bodies and death and decay and lack and change, constant change. And then there is, once we have forgiven all our judgments on ourselves and others, then we move into this state, which is our natural state. That's called the real world. In the real world, because we carry a higher density, a higher vibration, a vibration of love, things that are of love are attracted to us. So I could attract birds, I could attract raccoons, I could attract little dogs, I could remember people would literally, I swear to you, Christine, people would get out of the way on the streets and bump into me. And I could at first get, like, why is people doing this? They're getting out of the way to come and, get in my way. And I could, and right away the thought was they want to be close to your light. That was what spirit was telling me. So I could feel a little irritation, but right away I had the real answer. And so everything around you, when you're in that state, the world around you changes, because the world we live in is a reflection of our inner state. So if one person can change the world around him or around her, imagine what 3 or 4 billion people can do. That's a very different state of being, and one that builds upon each other. Is so the sum of the units are way greater than the number. So I think that's how things are going to pan out, in the sense of how is it possible for two worlds to show up. I think that's the mystical process. Is each time we accept more and more light, instead of these ugly funny thoughts we have. We elevate ourselves, we elevate everybody, and we elevate our environment, because we are not just our body in this dream. We are our environment as well. I am the body and the room around me, and everywhere I go around me. So if I can change that for myself, how much more can 3 or 4 billion people do? And again, this everything is designed for us to turn to God. Absolutely everything is designed for us to turn to God. The only reason things get really rough and really difficult, it's because we don't.
Thank you so much, Carlos. I have some questions for you. I have so many, but I'll try to keep it to a few. So intriguing and interesting. So you talk about before your near-death experience, everything was crumbling, everything was in disarray, deconstruction. Do you think that that is what's happening in the world today, right now?
Yes. Thank you for that. Such an important question. I think that's the reason why once we allowed our world to crumble and a new one to arise out of that one, for those of us who with near-death experiences, those of us who are able to do that, or through spontaneous awakenings, or however it is that we can do that, that's exactly how it works.
Yeah, and it's almost as if your vision of what's to come was a metaphor for exactly what you experienced in your own personal journey.
Yeah, exactly. So now it's easier, and I see examples now in my life, because there are institutions and there are places where I go, and they are just they're not at all functioning the way they were, and I suffer, and I go and I get angry, and then I remember everything is dissolving, everything is crumbling like that, so I can be more compassionate.
Yeah. And I had another question about our other lifetimes. So you had mentioned when I heal, you heal, and we heal each other in our own personal healing journeys. I had a question, if you have any awareness or opinion on when we do healing work in this lifetime, does that automatically affect all our other lifetimes?
From my point of view, Christine, no, it doesn't. What happens is that we have an interpretation of what our life is like, right? But once we reach a point, the point of enlightenment, once we reach that point of enlightenment, when we realize that absolutely everything that happens in our life and happened in our life was meant to lead us to this point of liberation, then your entire life changes. Because the life is not about a guy who came here to be born, struggle and have some fun and then die, but it's rather the sojourns of spirit that have finally reached a climax. So how I see my life changes. It's not the life of Carlos anymore, it's the life of an eternal spirit. In that sense, everything now makes sense. So I don't really need to change anything from the past, even if it was thousands of years ago, because those thoughts are the ones that had led me to this place.
Right. Kind of like everything led you to this moment, and it had to happen the way it did in order for you to get there.
Exactly. So what I learned to appreciate is the perfection of things. Nothing ever went sideways. We were touching on something that I thought, we could talk about this. But it just escaped my mind, so never mind.
That's okay. It'll come back. The one thing I wanted to talk about, some of the viewers may not be familiar with the timeline of Ascension. So can you explain in your own words what exactly that is and how it will play out?
Well, the timeline of Ascension started a couple of decades ago. We are now entering fully into it. It is so important not to pay attention, not to believe our eyes, because our eyes look at form, and so if we pay attention to that, then we're gonna see a lot of people, that for one reason or the other, they seem to be leaving the planet quicker now and faster, and a lot of excess deaths and all that stuff. That's all part of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
That's all part of the plan. We are already living either so we can return to the dream, or because we are done with the dream. Again, if I see somebody suffering and died a terrible death, I don't know anything about that soul, or the sojourn of that soul, or the plan for that soul. So the sure thought that I can hold in my mind is that that person is innocent, and this is simply a dream. That the form doesn't change at all who that person is, or the light in that person. So we can start, with the help of spirit, we can start seeing beyond the body. So now, with respect to timeline, we have maybe 20, 30 years before things really flip, in a way. Now, why I'm saying this? I'm saying this because geologically we are due for a next shake-up, so to speak. There are different Earth cycles. You have 16,000 years, 4,000 years, 24,000 years. Not all of them happen at the same time. This cycle, this time around, they do coincide. All the cycles coincide on to this point. So that's for the Earth. The sun is also waking up. It's also changing this density, same as the rest of the planet, because this is a cosmic awakening that's happening. We are not in control. All we can do is just lean to our silence and let us the energies guide us from there. So the sun, astronomers don't. We are due for a mini nova, so astronomers think that within the next 20, 30 years, we're gonna get one of these blasts. Now they don't know how intense it's going to be, or none of those things. The way I feel it, and this simply because this just, to me, is common sense. The way I've seen spirit work is what I call by approximation. So it brings you in slowly. It doesn't just pick you up from where you are and put you in a completely different space, because you're not prepared for that. I'm not prepared for that. So it brings you in slowly, out of the darkness and into the light, slowly. So these changes will also be incremental in the changes in the level of awareness that we have. All that is going to be incremental. But
and that's happening.
I see everything. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's been happening already.
Right.
And again, I think within 20, 30 years we're gonna see things really changing in many aspects, because every structure in government, medicine, everything is being replaced.
So how can we best prepare for that and really step into the truth of who we are and live in alignment with what you called just living through guidance or allowance or invitation? What would you say to viewers on how we can really step into that?
The best way is the only way, which is to step back from the world from the ideas that we have about ourselves, about the world. We need a break. We want a break. So as often as much as possible during the day, just take 3-5 minutes to unplug, totally unplug, let the world go. Go inside your heart, give yourself a break. And it's in that silence that you're telling Spirit, come, in silence, come, show me. I'm yours. That's what I'm doing. When I let go of what I think, of what I want, then when I let go of all these things of this world, of the material world, then we have room for Spirit to come in and fill in that void. There's never a void. So it's super important. Again, the way it's super important to rest, to find peace within our heart, and to, as much as possible, talk to Spirit. In the sense of literally, it's like being a child again. Mm. I may have very good plans, very good ideas, but maybe there are better plans and better ideas. So communicating with Spirit and first making room in our heart for silence. So when we ask Spirit, the communication can come through easier and faster. It's like we created a maze for ourselves, and we are right in the middle of the maze. All we see is walls around us. Our oversoul created the plan. It's looking from above, so it can tell you exactly where to turn, whether to wait or not. Literally, I have come at a point right now where I notice that my body is doing things and it reacts and moves and it goes to places without me thinking. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm sitting here with you, and then suddenly it's like, okay, I'll be right back, and I just take off. Mm-hmm. It's not like I'm weird and crazy and leave people, with a word on the mouth. But what I'm saying is that things happen automatically. We can go a little further saying that everything is automatic, but that's a little too far. We're not gonna go there.
I think I understand what you're saying, because you've gotten out of your own way. You've had all these wonderful experiences that have really shown you, or caused you to remember, should I say, who you are. You create that stillness, and then you allow yourself to be guided by that higher presence. So there's no efforting, willing, trying, which I think in the world today, there's a lot of doing, right? Just giving yourself a chance to be, and to allow yourself to be moved in the way that's in your highest alignment.
Exactly. So everything becomes really effortless. It is just so beautiful, Christine, after going through so much healing and doing apparently and so on. Now to come at a spot in my life where I don't live in luxury and abundance, but I have everything, absolutely everything I need. And sometimes it's as simple as thinking, I love my plants and I have a grow lamp, and I'm thinking, oh, this lamp is gonna go off soon, because I had it for about 2 years. And then 15 minutes later, I find another one, brand new, that I can replace it. Like things happening like that, small little things that speak, and tell you, you're always at the right place at the right time, never in doubt, always at the right place and the right time.
Carlos, I thank you kindly for sharing your time today, your experiences, your wisdom, your insight, and hopefully calling us into a greater level of remembrance. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we say goodbye?
No, Christine, I think well, there might be a lot more, but I'm really happy with the time we had together. And
Me too.
it's
Very grateful.
Yeah, it's a real treat to be chatting with you, to be in your presence. So I'm glad we did this.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carlos. Keep in touch. Have a great day.
Sure will. Bye, Christine.
Bye-bye.